Welcome back. This is the Philosophy of the Ananke, Part 5, and we'll continue where we left off right now. So let me click on the book so I can read it to you. The Logos of Decoding Ananke. During the past 15 years, I've used many tools, logical thought and feelings in order to decipher Ananke. This section will attempt to summarize the best approach to using the revealed four-pattern formula to decode Ananke as it applies to particular situations. These situations may be everyday events or philosophic abstractions. Let me also go ahead and turn down the volume of the music that I have on. Let's see. Okay, let's try that. Just a little background music. I don't know if it comes across or not. Okay, using the four-pattern formula. We walk through life minding our own business in balance with nature when suddenly a negative situation occurs. That is to say, the order of change just impacted our lives by causing an imbalance to us. We are set into motion, into action. We do not know what to do, but we must do something. This discomfort must be eliminated. The discomfort may be an accident, losing a job, a child screaming, a worker complaining, your spouse starting an argument, the checker giving you the wrong change, or a bee approaching your nose as if it were a flower. What should we do under the Ananke? What should we do to get back in balance while going with the flow of this Ananke? What does going with the flow mean? It is simple. We were in relative equilibrium before the situation, which is pattern number 1. We were disturbed in a negative manner, pattern number 2. Maybe if we could understand the other two patterns and what they mean with respect to this particular situation, we can find an answer. What then are the opposing forces, pattern number 3? If we stop and think, the opposing forces are simply the alternatives that can force the situation back to our relative state of equilibrium. Which alternative shall we use? The alternative should be used in a priority of least negative action, which is pattern number 4. Above all, peace of self should be achieved in the least negative manner for all concerned. Theoretically, this will achieve our goal while going with the flow of Ananke. Theoretically, Ananke will reward us if we carry out the exercise in this just manner. This reward may take the form of good feelings, such as the enjoyment of a mountain scene that we took for granted time and time again, or the form of material rewards that we are allowed to feel for an extended period of time. What I mean by this is that you may acquire a house overlooking the ocean. You may go to Hawaii for a 2-week vacation. You may acquire a luxury sports car. But if you did not earn the money in an Ananke way, then your feeling towards these possessions will be diminished and you will require more. On the subject of relative equilibrium, it should be mentioned that we are all searching for the ideal balancing point in our lives. Once achieved, we intrinsically feel that we would be centered in a happier state of affairs. Thus, we all are progressing towards our ultimate balance and state of harmony. In this sense, we walk the earth in states of relative equilibrium, not perfect, not ideal, but nonetheless satisfactory. Change, therefore, impacts this relative state of being content. But how do we achieve our ideal balancing point? How do we feel better? How do we diminish our pain in life? How do we achieve higher states of happiness? Again, we can use the four-pattern formula to help us. First, we must focus on a dimension in our lives that we are unhappy with or confused about. Perhaps we perceive ourselves as too fat. Perhaps we get angry too often. Perhaps our muscles hurt. Perhaps we don't like our jobs, etc. Therefore, pose a situation as the first step. Then, step 2. Define the extremes to the situation. We can be skinny or obese. We can be calm all the time or angry all the time. We can stay at our bad job indefinitely, or we can quit immediately. We can be sedentary and sleep all day, or we can exercise until our muscles are 10 feet deep. Step 3. We now know what not to do. Remember, the extremes are used by Ananke to force situations back to equilibrium. Thus, the right way can be discovered by understanding these boundaries. Get the next page. We know that the right way lies somewhere in between the bounds in a state of moderation. This is not to say that we must pursue mediocrity. For example, courage is the moderate position between cowardice and foolhardiness. Ambition lies at the mean between laziness and over-aggressiveness. Our ideal weight lies between the extremes of obesity and haggardness. On the contrary, mediocrity is the normal behavior of the masses. Extreme behavior is common. Obesity, laziness, and impatience are just some of the mediocre virtues that may be possessed. Extremism is mediocrity, whereas moderation is superiority. So take a guess as to the moderate position as it applies to you. Define the target, the goal. This is your initial guess or hypothesis. Step 4. We have defined our initial target. We must get there in the least negative manner for all involved. We should not benefit ourselves while leaving in our wake the dead remains of our family and our friends. We should research the techniques available to do the job and choose the least negative, most efficient technique first. Thereafter, we can use more negative, more costly techniques if the initial ones did not work. Above all, get to the target in the least negative manner possible for all involved. Step 5. Do not give up. You may have chosen the wrong moderate position to work on first. Ananke wants you to primarily work on the critical ones. You can work on the top priority ones concurrently with others, but you cannot conquer the lower priorities for any length of time without conquering the higher ones. In other words, disharmony in a household or disharmony in a job may lead to overeating and consequent gain in weight. One should work on the family and job imbalance as well as the weight problem if at all possible. Prioritize and Ananke will help you. Do it out of priority and you may find yourself losing many battles. Step 6. Do not give up. You may have chosen the wrong technique. You may need to find other techniques. Get up, dust yourself off and try again. Eventually, like the Wright brothers, you will fly. If the above procedures applied, then the rewards will come your way. You will understand that you changed your life for the better. As you change your life and work with the formula of Ananke, you will begin to recognize the balancing points of your personality. You will discover many imbalances that you must work on. It is not easy, it is not a pill. But like any tool that is used, it does get easier. The imbalances will become apparent. The way of defining the point of equilibrium will become trivial and obvious. The process of achieving the proper way will require less effort. Your life will improve, it will contain less pain, and you will reach a higher level of happiness. Using feelings and thoughts. We are not only capable of logical thought, we are capable of feeling thought. This will become clear in a moment. We can divide feelings into 3 groups: positive feelings, negative feelings, and indistinguishable feelings, neutral feelings. Moreover, feelings can come from chemical inducement or thought inducement. For example, if we take Valium or other mood-changing drugs, we feel more positive temporarily. On the other hand, if we view a funny movie, we laugh and smile and feel more positive as well. So those are 2 examples of chemical-induced or thought-induced. Thoughts can interact with drug-induced feelings. For example, if you drink too much alcohol and are feeling close to going, quote, over the hill, you can sometimes control the dreaded behavior by calming yourself down, wiping the cold sweat from your brow. Driving after you drink, although not recommended, is a very sobering experience as you talk yourself home without getting into an accident. Certainly chemicals and thoughts produce feelings, but do thoughts produce feelings from chemicals or vice versa? An interesting observation is the fact that hypnosis seems to eliminate the awareness of some feelings, such as the pricking of a finger with a needle and its associated pain. Certainly the nerve impulses are triggered and chemicals are released between nerve endings. So where are the feelings that are supposed to be induced? Could it be that feelings are thoughts? Could it be that chemicals merely induce thoughts of a given nature, and that we call these thoughts feelings? This would explain the hypnosis example, in that the chemically induced feeling thoughts, as I'm quoting it right now, were blocked and cancelled by other directed thoughts. Therefore, it is suggested that thoughts are primary to the realm of feelings. Without thoughts, there are no feelings. If there are feelings, there must be thoughts behind them. If there are thoughts, there may be feelings associated with them. This is not to say that all thoughts have feelings associated with them. This merely suggests that some thoughts have positive or negative feelings associated with them. We will call these thoughts, quote, feeling thoughts. How can we use these feeling thoughts in our investigation of Ananke? It is simple. We know the general theory of Ananke. We know that all must fit together. We know that all patterns culminate in one group of patterns, and that this group has a singular pattern or purpose associated with it. We know that additional patterns must feel right. That is to say, we must feel a oneness, that a new pattern fits into the picture. This can be considered similar to the feeling one gets when a new piece of a jigsaw puzzle is found. A good feeling is released. We know we got the right piece even before we placed it down. It is therefore suggested that any new uncovered patterns should be tested and also digested in time. That is to say, we must sleep on our discoveries in order to allow our inner feelings to emerge. A further use for feeling thought is in pursuing a piece of the puzzle of Ananke. The mere act of investigating an issue and saturating our minds with the topic will sometimes produce an "I got it" feeling. This feeling thought is usually positive and factual, in that a new, plausible direction is revealed. In a strange way, we can call these feeling thoughts, quote, inspirations. Usually these thoughts are associated with the mental exclamation of, quote, "I got it." Next page. This is not to say that all inspirations are true. I am saying that inspirations or feeling thoughts are very useful at creating hypotheses under Ananke. These hypotheses must be logically tested and verified as usual. They must be shown to explain the world data. They must fit into the other patterns that were discovered, including the patterns of science. Communicating with Ananke. I'm not saying that Ananke talks. I'm not saying at this point in the book that there is a consciousness associated with it. What I am saying is that an order seems to exist and can be decoded if we but quote-unquote listen to it. We quote-unquote listen by reading the language of Ananke, its logos. We listen by recognizing its intonation, our feeling thoughts. We interact with it by sensing its touch, our feelings. And, as an Egyptian would say, we comprehend it by using our minds and our hearts. In the next chapter, I will reveal the formula of Ananke as it manifests itself in man's life. I will be mostly concerned with classifying concepts and feelings under the 4 patterns of the Ananke. This classification represents some of the testing that I had done over the years. The 4 patterns were not violated. They stood the test of time and explained all of the concepts that were investigated. Chapter 3. The formula of Ananke as it applies to man. The following classification of concepts and feelings are meant to demonstrate the robustness and all-inclusiveness of the powerful formula that was exposed previously. It is hoped that the reader will gain an appreciation for the sense in which it is said that, quote, the particular events of man are mere extensions of the Ananke, that emotions and situations are only subsets of the higher patterns of this Ananke, that feelings and human activities are being directed by the 4 primary patterns, that our free will lies in the amount of pain that we wish to endure, that the consequence of going against the order is pain and eventual destruction, that the consequence of going with the order is joy, pleasure, and a higher level of happiness for all. Expressions of the four patterns of the Ananke. Expressions of the balancing point. The lesson of self-interest. It should be of no doubt that we are all extremely self-interested. We care for ourselves first. We are number one. But why? Why do we feel this way? Perhaps the knowledge of the Ananke can reveal the wisdom. First of all, self-interest is only our desire to achieve and maintain our balance and harmony now and in the future. We will not let our balance be disrupted, and we fear future situations that may cause imbalance to our bodies and minds. Even a mother's love for a child is self-interest. All it takes is one lack of concern or care, and she is bombarded with feelings of guilt, concern, worry, and an overwhelming fear for her child's welfare. If she makes a mistake, she knows intrinsically that she will be haunted by negative feelings for the rest of her life. In a way of speaking, the Ananke makes sure the child is protected for the most part. Please note that a lack of self-interest would be if she did not have these feelings and still cared in the same way. So it seems apparent that we must face the reality of our own self-interest. But why do we feel this way when we are not taking care of a child or a helpless person? Why do we have so many motivations that require more? Why do we want more possessions, more food, more love, more friends, more prestige, and more money? Why do we feel so out of balance that we require these things? Where did our expectations of life come from? Did we have all of these possessions at some remote time in the past? Certainly we wanted more attention and love when we were children. Could it be farther in the past than childhood that our expectations were set? Next section. The lesson of what I call, quote, womb service. You heard it, womb, W-O-M-B service. A cute variation on the classic word of room service. Let us visualize a fetus in the womb of its mother. What are its equilibrium conditions? It needs no clothing, since it is warm and comfortable. It needs no food, for it is fed through the mother's efforts. It needs no shelter, since it is enclosed in its own protective chamber. It need not concern itself with anything except physical growth, and this growth is not of its own doing. Therefore, we can safely say that we all start out in life as kings and queens. We all had built-in servants. We all had Mom and the Ananke taking care of us. It seems that all good things must come to an end. And so our royal, quote, womb service, unquote, came to a grinding halt. Our prenatal state of equilibrium, peace, tranquility, and harmony was terminated with an enormous unwanted struggle, a lot of discomfort, and a slap on our rear end. We were born. The agony of it all, the ultimate statement of the changing fortunes of time. We had it all, and it was taken away from us. How dare they? I think I made my point. The Ananke seems to have played a trick, or I call it a trick, it's not really a trick, on us. It gave us everything, then took it away. Thus we are fated to constantly seek this ultimate womb service in life. We want to be kings and queens. We want to recapture those magical months when Mom and Ananke took care of us. We want to achieve that ultimate state of peace, tranquility, and happiness that we once had. We don't like the negative changes in life that drive us further from this target state of being. We don't like the future potential imbalances that may occur. We are willing to take out insurance to protect against those possible outcomes. But why did it play this presumed quote-unquote trick? What wisdom could there be in this Ananke? I'm personifying it, of course, even though I don't intend to say there's a God at this point. What is this wisdom? What is this wisdom? What wisdom could there be in this Ananke with respect to womb service? Let us examine the facts. We are fated to the tendency of wanting an unrealistic state of happiness, an ideal state of existence, a utopia. We will not be satisfied until we achieve this goal. At the very least, we will try to reach this impossible dream and eventually settle for less. In the process of sub-optimizing, in the process of merely increasing our level of happiness, we encounter the other patterns of the Ananke. Thus, we are fated to run into the law of change, the law of opposing forces, and the law of efficiency. In other words, we are given the opportunity to be exposed to the Ananke, the ultimate order in things. After all, we must obey it in order to achieve or even come close to our goal, happiness. Therefore, this trick turns out to be an opportunity to realize this Ananke and be rewarded by the state of happiness that we all know could exist. It existed in our past, it could exist in our future, it can exist now. Please note that if we were not fated to feel this imbalance, then we would all be satisfied from day one. We would be satisfied and learn not a single lesson under the Ananke. We would never seek to understand it. We would never try to understand why. Why me? Why is the world like it is? Why are they doing this to me? Why am I here? And what is the answer? Next section. And I'm looking at the time. Maybe I have one more and that's it. The lesson of the win-win principle. We now understand that not only are we self-interested, but we are all seeking to be kings and queens, living in an ideal state called eternal happiness. And so each one of us competes for the resources necessary to achieve this goal. This inevitability produces a lot of conflict, since our individual welfare may be at the expense of others. We initially tend to take that which we think we need. However, humanity has learned that conquering in an unjust manner, in a most destructive manner, tends to limit the time in which a fortune may be enjoyed. The mighty conqueror of the past enjoyed his kingdom until a mightier one appeared who consequently took the fortune away. This was inevitable, since injustice seems to breed injustice. This was inevitable since youth is stronger. Youth is stronger than the elderly and was bound to conquer eventually. So the strong learned to acquire the kingdom through democratic appointment of the king. The wealthy class elected their king. This worked for a while, until even the slaves became a threat to the timely enjoyment that wealth could bring. And so we come to the concept of a democracy, where the power is divided and also elected by the people. Moreover, laws are created to dictate the way we can obtain the wealth that we seem to desire. Each one of us can self-actualize our innate desire to be king, if we only follow the rules and play the game. But what is the essence of this evolved game? Is it not the principle that we can help ourselves if we but help others simultaneously? Can we not express this principle as seeking the win-win situation? A situation where we come closer to equilibrium and others do too? So Ananke is slowly leading humanity towards its ultimate goal of benefiting all. A balance of self-interested entities is desired. It's the only way each one of us can win for any length of time. The win-win is becoming our individual self-interests. Sure, we can try to take and not give, but what we take will not last, and perhaps we won't enjoy the things that we acquire. Therefore, there is only one way of achieving our goal. We must help ourselves by helping others. The essence of business relies on the fact that people need its service, that its service gets the public closer to their perceived equilibrium. In return, the business enterprise makes money, which in turn benefits its members. The win-win is all around us. When the principle is violated, the enterprise eventually goes out of business. That is to say, their fortunes are taken away from them. They are prosecuted. You may ask, but they enjoyed the wealth for a while. Where's the justice? My only answer is that we seem to feel primarily in the present moment. Our enjoyment in life comes primarily from the now. Therefore, the criminals forget their enjoyment of the past, become aware of their present misery, which they so justly deserve. And I'll now look at the time on the camera, which is over here, and it's at 24 minutes. Well, maybe I can go on a little bit more. So let's go a little bit further. The lesson of present awareness. With the primary directive of harmony and balance over all entities and over all time, it is a natural consequence that we are individually concerned in a similar manner. If you were the order of things, which is the way a lot of times I like to think of it, this Ananke, how would you scatter our awareness of the past, present, and future? Would you not focus most of our awareness in the present? Would you not focus our attention on eliminating the immediate needs or discords first? Of course you would, and so does this Ananke. We are naturally concerned with achieving and maintaining our balance in the present moment. How else could we fulfill the primary directive of balance for ourselves over all time? However, discord situations in our past are relevant as well insofar as they teach us lessons for living a more balanced life now. Thus, we would expect a certain healthy concern for our past. In other words, discord events of our youth should haunt us until we understand the valid reasons why it happened. If we caused it to happen, then we must learn the lesson and change our behavior. On the other hand, if it was not our fault, then we must examine those people who caused the disruption to occur. In this manner, we could make sure that we did not replicate their mistakes. We could learn by other persons' actions and deeds. The future is also relevant to our long-term balance and harmony. We must take proper measures now in order to ensure an easier, happier life in the future. We should mentally scan our future for probable discord events that could be prevented by taking action now. This would be a healthy approach. However, it is when our concern for the future becomes disproportionate to our concern for the present balance that we start questioning its validity. We, after all, want to live in peace now. Therefore, if you were this Ananke, how would you divide a normal person's awareness in order to maximize the chances for a long, happy life? Under normal circumstances, wouldn't you divide the awareness such that the present moment dominates? Wouldn't the past and future come in second? Of course you would, and so does this Ananke. We devote our minds mostly in the present. A week after a 12-day vacation, you feel as if you were never there. The memory loss loses 90% of its feelings, and in 5 working days, 10%. The memory loses 90% of its feelings in 5 working days. 10% of the time we may reflect on the past, and 10% of the time we may dream of the future, but 80% or more is in the here and now. Since most of our awareness and feelings come from the present, good times will make us forget the bad, and bad times will make us forget the good. If you go against the flow of Ananke, you are bound to incur the bad times eventually. Your luck, so to speak, will run out. You will be caught, you will be prosecuted, or you simply will lose every decent friend, relative, and acquaintance you ever had, and be left with the takers and disruptors of your environment. You even may be haunted by continuous bad feelings and nightmares. In other words, deeds against the order will produce a feeling of eternal punishment since you will forget the past. This suggests don't live today for tomorrow you die. Instead, strive for balance and peace today, for tomorrow you will be rewarded with harmony and happiness for an apparent forever. So the lesson of present awareness should teach us to follow this Ananke because time is on its side. Follow it, and we will be rewarded in our present awareness. Go against it, and we will be punished in our present awareness. Since our present awareness is practically all we have, our punishment or reward will feel like it is forever. Okay, we're at 28 minutes, so I want to wrap it up right now. We're not through with that chapter. Of course, we'll come back in part 6. And thank you for visiting. You have under my video right now how to subscribe, and please do that. And if you want to copy the book, how to do that as well. So take care. See you next time in part 6.